Hi everybody, I'm Dr. John Douillard and welcome to LifeSpa.com. I want to talk today about this thing we call age-related memory decline. You know, it's shown that 40% of folks over 65 have something called age-related memory decline. It's considered normal. I don't think that should be normal, but it is something that happens to a lot of us. Studies also show that this molecule, not really a hormone, called melatonin, it actually decreases as we age. And research has now linked the connection between age-related memory decline and that lack of melatonin that decreases with age, you know, sort of again quite naturally. Nature sort of has a way of getting rid of us as we age, because we're not making any babies anymore, we're not procreating the species anymore, so nature starts to produce less melatonin, and that creates an accelerated degeneration, something we call aging, which can be hacked by understanding how to use melatonin in a very creative and intelligent way, which is kind of really, really interesting. But let's talk about, before we get into how to use melatonin to do that, let's talk about what melatonin is. First of all, it isn't really a hormone, because hormone by definition will suppress your natural production, right? If you take a thyroid hormone, you can expect that your body will make less of that thyroid hormone. If you take melatonin, according to a melatonin researcher named Paula Whitt-Embry, who is a researcher of melatonin at Duquesne University, who I did a podcast with, she told me that melatonin doesn't suppress the natural production of your own. It encourages the natural production of your own, which is really cool when you're thinking about hacking the aging process and supporting your memory, is that you can actually take less over time, not more, which is like totally un-American, right? Because more is always better. But this is not how it works with melatonin. You find a dose that works. If it starts to not work, you actually take less because your body's got what it's taking, right? And now what it's making, because it's encouraging your own production. And then you can take a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less and get down to a really, really low dose, something called low dose melatonin. So that's kind of really interesting. And melatonin is a molecule not to get us to sleep. That's not its goal in life. Its goal in life is to, while you're sleeping, detox, rebuild, repair, rejuvenate, change your microbiome, regulate your hormones, and support liver detoxification. It's like the night janitor and watchman come in and detoxify, rebuild, and repair while you're sleeping, right? So melatonin, yes, it will get you to sleep so it can actually then do its job, which is also involved in deep sleep. Because if you're stressed out and your body's not getting enough melatonin because of all the blue light and everything we're exposed to and excess cortisol, it doesn't let us settle down deeply. We don't go into that deep sleep to get the real deep rejuvenation that we could get with optimal levels of melatonin. So something to think about. So back to the memory issue, right? In a placebo-controlled study with about 50 different adults, they gave 3 milligrams per day and 3 milligrams before they went to bed. And then 1 hour later, though, they gave them a stressor and also exposed them to some things that they were to remember. And the next day, they asked them to remember them. But there was a stress involved, a psychological stress. So they gave them the melatonin, then they stressed them out, then they showed them some objects, and then they saw if they could remember them the next day. The group that took the melatonin had significantly better memory than the group that didn't take the melatonin, right? Suggesting better memory function. In another study with 80 patients with mild memory decline, they took 2 milligrams of melatonin for 24 weeks, and they gave them a battery of cognitive tests after that. And the group that took the melatonin, once again, had better cognitive memory function, which is cool. And they linked it to, in terms of a mechanism, how it works, is melatonin is a powerful antioxidant. It's also antiviral, which is why they gave it to Donald Trump when he had COVID. It's also deep rejuvenative, but it's also an antioxidant. And what they found is that in the brain, we all know this, right? There's a lot of fat in the brain, and fats are easily oxidized. That's what means when your LDL levels go up and they're oxidized, that's what damages your arteries. So keeping your fats from getting oxidized is really key. Well, melatonin is one of the powerful antioxidants that works in your brain to help kind of provide antioxidant protection of the good fats to support good function of your brain chemistry. That's how it works. Other things that are really cool about, how Ayurveda understood to protect your fats in the winter, because in the winter it's cold and dry in Ayurveda, right? And nature calls that vata, which means air. Air and the wind, it dries us out, we get constipated, our joints get dry, our skin gets dry. It's called vata, which means air, too much air. Nature's antidote for too much air, too much vata, is the harvest of warm cooked foods and soups and stews and sweet potatoes and higher fat, higher, kind of more dense, heavier diet versus a lighter diet, which you would get in the summer, which has more air in it, right? Logical, makes sense. Squirrels eat nuts in the winter because it's anti-vata. So we should do the same. Well, Ayurveda said that there are 3 tastes to eat in the winter, which is happening now. Sweet, which are like grains and rice and things like that. Sour and salt. Salt obviously melts snow, so it's good for the winter as well. It warms us up. And also sour. We don't think of sour, but sour is like lemons and herbs like amalaki. And sour foods have been proven, this is the cool thing, to have a lot of vitamin C, which is really cool. But the sour taste and the vitamin C, what it actually does to the fats in your body and in your brain is it provides antioxidant protection, right? So you can do it with melatonin. You can do it with more lemons in your diet in the wintertime. Just think it's sweet, sour, and salt in the winter, so amp up that lemon juice, amp up the lemon on your food and the lemon on, squeezing lemon water in the morning. Taking an herb like amalaki may be something to consider as well because it's loaded with those really powerful antioxidant vitamin C factors that protect the good fats. In fact, studies show that the fats in your diet, the fats particularly in your brain, can go rancid due to oxidation. And the vitamin C will not only protect it from going rancid, those fats, but also reconstitute them if they did get damaged from oxidation. It's crazy, right? That vitamin C, rich foods, which happen to be available in the winter, so when we get our oranges and lemons and amalakis, when it's all harvested, and you have that in the wintertime, it gives you all this major protection for your fats and the damage in your brain. Well, it turns out melatonin, which is something that happens really well when you live in sync with the natural cycles, go to bed at the right time, wake up at the right time, don't expose yourself to lots of blue light from cell phones and screens all the time, and respect the light-dark cycles in a powerful way. Melatonin will help us connect that. But as you get older, research shows we're going to produce less of that melatonin, so you can hack the aging process, which is what I do every night. I take about 3 drops of melatonin every night. We have something called low-dose melatonin, where 1 drop is just 0.1 milligram. You can't buy that low of a dose in the store. And research by a researcher named Al Louie did research on how low-dose melatonin works just as effectively as high-dose melatonin, 3 to 5 milligrams. And suggests that when you take low dose, you can get the same benefit, which is really neat when you're just hacking the aging process. I don't want to take 5 milligrams a night every night. That's so much melatonin. But what happens is when you start to find the right dose for your individual needs, let's say you start with low dose melatonin. My particular plan for my patients is start with 1 drop, which is just 0.1 milligram. Do it for 5 nights, then take 2 drops for 5 nights, then take 3 drops for 5 nights, then take 4 drops for 5 nights. Now you're at 0.5 milligram. Somewhere along that between usually 1 and 10 drops or 0.1 to 1 milligram, you're going to feel like I'm sleeping better, deeper, I wake up refreshed, I'm not groggy. Stay on that dose. As soon as that dose starts to not work for you, remember, it's going to encourage your natural production. So what do, right? You take less because you have what you're taking and now what you're making new, because it encourages natural production. So you can go from, say, 5 drops to 4 drops to 3 drops. And most of my patients find massive differences between 1, 2, and 3 drops. We become super sensitive to the benefit because a little bit when you're older might be just what you need to hack the aging process and protect you from some accelerated degeneration and, according to the science, age-related memory decline, which may not be as normal as they say. All right, thanks for listening. I'll talk to you all next week. I'm Dr. John Douillard.